He's a practitioner really implementing this approach to unlock opportunities for the youth and women on the ground. So we'll be talking to him about that. Then we have Shri Madan Patki, who's a managing trustee of Head Held High Foundation, a foundation whose work has been significant in terms of unlocking many opportunities for youth, for converting youth into entrepreneurs and so on and so forth. So we'll have Madan talk about that. And incidentally, we realized that Madan and Shriram were roommates at college. So he's joined, and I had no idea, by the way, right? So this is serendipity. This is the magic of discovery, which we are going to talk about shortly. So Shriram, he's a partner at Deloitte, and he's been involved in terms of talking about how an approach like this can really benefit folks in the economy and ultimately the citizens in this context. So without further ado, I'll just get started with that. But thank you everyone for being there. And once again, is it working now? अभी कर लें पहले फोटो ओके पहले फोटो बात पे All right, so I know there's a tagline for this session, Unlocking India's Demographic Dividend, and how Blue Dots to the power of AI can be the digital rails to do that. So a little bit about that idea or the concept in terms of what we'll be talking about. I think we have heard a couple of very popular narratives in the context of employment, in the context of the demographic dividend of the country, which is youth. One, which has been about the fact that India is struggling with the jobs crisis. We need to have many, many more jobs and so on and so forth. Second, that while we do have the demographic dividend, but is it a dividend or a liability? And we talk about a skills crisis in that context, that probably we're not preparing our youth to pick up the relevant skills which can ultimately lead them to be employed by the industry. But I think there's a missing narrative also in this context, and that's something that will surface as we talk about this, which is that there are enough and more youth in the country, there are enough and more avenues for them to pursue their dreams in the country, but the two are not digitally discoverable, and that creates a discovery crisis. In fact, just think about this, that all of us can see blue dots of different options around us, right from places of interest to finding cabs to finding restaurants. But can you find jobs around you as a blue dot? Can you find tourism experiences around you as a blue dot? Can you find many other aspects that are important in your life around you as a blue dot? And that's the thing that we'll speak about, that when you enable discovery to be addressed in that context, that opens up many avenues. In fact, there are pilots on this which are happening in Ghaziabad, that Abhinavji is leading, likewise in Dharwad, in Ranchi, and at a few other places which will be shortly starting that. But what that is revealing is that the moment you make the youth, the people as blue dots, and you make the opportunities, be it in the context of livelihood, welfare schemes, etc., as blue dots, that's really starts changing the discovery game. And with that discovery game, a lot of aha factors come up, and we'll shortly be discussing that. So just to kick it off, Manmiji, I wanted to ask the first question to you. We, of course, talk about the aspect that India may or may not have the right capability, but is it true that we have a capabilities gap, or is it really, discovery as a gap which stops us from seeing the capabilities of people, and especially with the initiative that you're leading, which is around creating purple dots for people with disabilities, and almost 1 lakh plus have been created, very recently. So how do you see this as a problem? I mean, is that a problem of capability, or are we really missing out on something which is pointing to the problem of discovery in the country?
Thank you, Gauravji, and a very good afternoon. I think it's not a problem of capability. India does not lack the ability. But what India lacks is the source of visibility, or basically discoverability, like you call it. We have seen through our government schemes, and this could be typical of any government scheme across different ministries. There's always a whole framework that we put in. We have a lot of standards that it matches these check boxes, and only then you are eligible for that particular scheme. And many a times, many funds remain unspent primarily because we are unable to find the exact person fitting those particular check boxes that we call as eligibility. But besides them, there's a huge cohort of people who are sitting there ready to be discovered, like you put it. And I think it's that visibility that we are looking through. And this is the time that we are need to use AI and technology in the best possible way to identify that cohort of people who may not, as like I said, fall into that framework of a government scheme, but that does not mean that they don't have the aspirations, the capabilities, the talent, the ability. That what they lack is the visibility from the government perspective, but then government is not the only provider to match their aspirations. The government can also, with the use of smart AI and technology platform, bring their aspirations to match with a set of people who are willing to contribute to that. And I think that's what the purple dot / blue dot, and today I've heard an orange dot is talking about.
Right. Orange dot, yeah, that's a new one. No, thank you for articulating that. In fact, what you are bringing out is the fact that we don't really have a problem in terms of having people with aspirations or having livelihood avenues, avenues for skilling, avenues for different types of services or welfare schemes. The real thing is to make it surfaceable, discoverable, and that's where AI, with its ability to convert intent into voice, into a signal, that really can be a game changer.
You know, we are a very aspirational country at this point of time. We talk about the democratic dividend. That dividend comes coming with a lot of hope and a lot of aspirations. And I think we need to give a voice to each one of them. And that can happen only when we open doors, windows, whether it has to be physically done or digitally done, but we need to do that.
Excellent. So AI giving voice in a way to the youth, to the women, to the aspirations of people with disabilities, and that coming out. Thank you. Abhinavji, you're really doing it on the ground, enabling this in Ghaziabad. In fact, we got to know about how in just the last couple of months, you've been able to surface so many local jobs for the local people of Ghaziabad, right? So what is this approach telling you from a practitioner's perspective, as you see many local job options being made discoverable for the local youth, local women of Ghaziabad, and how do you see this moving from there?
See, when we look at the entire ecosystem of this employment, we have many stakeholders. For example, you have the employment exchange, which is having the database of all the aspirants who want to get job. Then we have the Polytechnic, ITI, Skill Development Mission, UP Skill Development Mission as a state mission, which are skilling youth in certain skills which are required in the market. Then we have the industries, which are the job providers. And all these stakeholders, they are working under different ministries, under different departments. And when we see this entire ecosystem, nobody thinks of it under one umbrella when we see it at the district level. And this is where the discovery part comes into picture and the use of AI comes into picture. where what we did was to enable this AI-based technology or AI-based discovery, we brought all these stakeholders together under one umbrella, which was Jobs Facilitation Center, which we formed at the district level, and all these departments and all these stakeholders, they were brought together. And they were made to exchange the database, they were made to exchange the information. For example, Ghaziabad has 2.5 lakh registered MSMEs, and obviously unofficially also much more than, many more than that. So when we talk about 2.5 lakh MSMEs, that means we are as in having too many jobs. If I even average it like 5 per MSME, so you can see the numbers, which is huge.
Yeah.
And when we used to conduct the offline melas, numbers used to be 2,500, 3,500, 5,000 at max. At max, which we went at a CM's event was 5,000,
Right.
not more than that. So getting these many jobs surfaced was a task, especially having any offline setup and all these departments working separately.
Right.
Because whenever, just an example, for example, I used to ask these employment exchange officer, you tell me how many students you have been able to reach out, or these aspirants you have been able to reach out, who will be coming to the employment mela. So the usual answer used to be, sir, 8,000, 10,000. Out of those, hardly 50-60% used to turn up at the mela. So, but when we started this blue dot, because this was the vision behind all that, so we made sure that all these GFC members, they sit together. We had multiple meetings with them, and we made sure that the district industry center, which is responsible for handling all the MSME issues, we made sure we held all the meetings with industrial associations, get all these MSMEs on this platform, ask them to create the blue dots in form of job providers on this platform.
Right.
Number one. That's how we created more than 10,000 jobs in last 60 days,
Right.
where we met almost 10 to 12 industries association, where obviously Headed High and Ekstep, both of them did really well, because Headed High team was there. Because you know that you need to really motivate the staff down, and that's why we needed the help of someone like Headed High to push it. And that's how we created 10,000 jobs. And when it came to job seekers, we were finding it difficult to register these students. For example, we also had the higher education officer in this JFC. But he or she was not able to basically generate those many numbers, because they didn't have any database of the alumni.
Right.
For example, because these local colleges, they don't have this concept of alumni association, or even maintaining a database of those students who have already graduated, or even they don't have any idea if they're employed or not. So in that sense, that's where the AI chatbot came to the picture, and AI bot rather, calling bot. Right. And we were amazed that when we use the same database which Employment Exchange had, say 8,000 data was with the Employment Exchange, almost 24,000 ka data was with the skill development department.
Right.
So almost we had the data of 32, 40,000 students or the job seekers.
Right.
This AI bot, what it did was it called all these students, and we were able to generate 10,000 blue dot as job seekers,
Right.
on this platform with the help of AI bot. And that is where even this was a revelation for me also. Even I never thought a calling bot can do so many things. Right. In fact, when I was discussing the same with the Adarsh ji yesterday, so he mentioned that we have a step 3 also. And I was amazed. The next step would be like the bot will be asking you, okay, what exactly do you need? As in, what skills you want to get skilled into. So then we'll be bringing in the other partners, other stakeholders of the ecosystem. For example, the staffers, the placement agencies, because these MSMEs, they always used to approach the local placement agencies to get these staffed. But now imagine all the placement agencies of Ghaziabad, or say locally, all the say near Noida or Meerut. So all the placement agencies, staffing firms, skilling centers, skilling as an agencies, they all will be on the same platform, and we'll be create an ecosystem which has been so dispersed at this time. So this was the experiences.
No, excellent. That's amazing. In fact, just for perspective, I also wanted to share that when you look at the conventional job platforms like Naukri, Apna, all of these, everyone put together could not even show 100 jobs in Ghaziabad. Right, and what Abhinavji is talking about, 10,000 plus jobs, and I think that came out of just 1,000 odd MSMEs that were reached out.
Yes.
Right,
yes.
so
Only through associations.
only through associations approaching them, and we are talking about 2.5 lakh MSMEs in Ghaziabad. So does India really have a jobs problem? I think the answer lies in what he's been trying, and how AI gave voice to people so that the jobs can become a blue dot, so that people can see around that, and vice versa. But Madan, now...
Can I butt in before
please.
you speak with Mr. Madan? And a request to Abhinav and his entire team, and probably the Head Hill High Foundation, who's working with the Ghaziabad Authority, is that while you do this headhunting exercise for so many unemployed youths and along with MSMEs there, I think the requirement is also to ensure that you reach out to the PWDs there, and that data can be, of course, it is already with you if you have an integration with the UDID database. You will be able to identify the PWD youth there. And when you have MSMEs there, anybody willing to take up a PWD and give them the skill sets along with whatever you need, we'll be happy to help you if you required SOPs for the hearing impaired or for the vision impaired. We have other organizations here who work in that field, like Uniki and Gopal Krishna and all the others. We'll be happy to join in this exercise. But my deep request to all of you is that when you take on the youth, don't forget the youth that are with disabilities in this entire exercise.
Excellent.
In fact, we have, ma'am, 15,000 specially able people registered under UDID scheme.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
So 15,000 purple dots hence can happen in Ghaziabad.
Yes, definitely, ma'am. In fact, ma'am, we did a small project with the IOCL and one of our, I'm from IT Madras, ma'am. I graduated from IT Madras, so one of my senior they have a startup. So we collaborated with NeoMotion and IOCL, and we got them placed in Zomato also. So Zomato has service delivery partners.
Zomato has 2,500 PWDs working with them.
Oh, excellent.
So these are just examples that can be emulated by MSMEs. And trust me, these people are better workers. They're more sincere. Yeah. They adapt well. But the only thing that's required is a SOP for them and on-job training, so that the attrition rate is lower. They are aware of what they are getting into.
Yeah, though that becomes important. Right. So that's an excellent point in terms of how people with disabilities can participate. And thank you, Abhinavji, for accepting that request. Madan, so Abhinavji, you have to head out, right? I know. So, but request made, request accepted. So at least that part taken care of. Action items. All right. So Madan, I'll ask the question to you. Abhinavji, thank you. I think you have to leave for an important meeting, but thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye. Madan, so you've been a advocate of Blue Dots. You've been working with the ecosystem across different implementations. I just wanted to ask you, what do Blue Dots really mean to you? And what are the kind of use cases that come into your mind when you think of something like Blue Dots, especially those linked to unlocking India's demographic dividend?
Thank you, Gaurav, and fascinating to hear the comments and the thoughts. Now, I was just reflecting as I was sitting here, the discoverability, as you said, Blue Dots help discover two roommates after a long time. But I was just thinking, see, my dad used to run a travel agency. So when I was growing up, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, I used to go and do all the coordinations on phone, and somebody calls and say, cab driver has not come. Then you call that guy. By the time you call this fellow, the cab driver is somewhere else. It used to be such a nightmare trying to get the addresses going. And then came Uber many years later. Yeah. It changed the whole perspective that you look at a problem and say, if you apply tech, what emerges? Right. And I have wondered many times, saying that it's such a simple idea. Why didn't it strike anybody? Right? And Uber then went on to obviously respond to many billions of dollars of the inflection point that we are at today is that the Blue Dot, as an example, is that it gives us it not just gives us, it forces us to reimagine the way things work, right? And if we don't reimagine, we will be still stuck in the old world, right? So the whole concept that we've been talking about is that if you use four forces, and Manmeet was talking about the whole aspirations, and I truly believe that unless and until aspirations are understood and packaged and catered to, adoption won't happen. Right. So you take aspirations, you take youth power, which Head and I, we've been doing it for 15 years, and you take entrepreneurial resilience that exists in Bharat, and you take technology, you combine those four forces, you can create a new rural, and I call that as Ruben and therefore Rubenomics. Right. So to me, the AI part and the blue dot and the DPI is that what can you do to give the power of DPI to the power of AI to the youth? Right? Well, you said blue dots to the power of AI. I'm saying there is a youth power, add the DPI power and the AI power to it. Right. The net effect can be exponential. Right? We've been discussing the blue dots on the purple dots and the orange dots. The beauty of AI is hyper-personalization. Right? Yeah. So instead of just conceptualizing blue dot today as a point in time, what if the blue dot grows in size and colors in the journey of the youth? Right. So one of the things that we hear, and this we keep talking to our recruiters, to say from the lens of a youth, attrition is not a bug, it's a feature. Because if I'm a youth from a tier 4, tier 3 town, I've started working in a hotel, I don't like it, I'll quit it and try something else till I settle down. Right? Yeah. So how do you make that feature better? That how do you help youth career discover what they're good at, do it faster, right? Can you give them more opportunities as they go along? So this whole aspect of leveraging the power of youth to explore many economic opportunities, and not just economic opportunities, social opportunities that bring them dignity. Right? One of my biggest lessons in Hedelda has been that, well, we keep saying, and I'm sure, ma'am, you'll see this in the work that you do, that it is not just a job, it is the social dignity that it provides. That's why the name we call is a head held high, that where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, right? And money is a byproduct of that. Yeah. So I think it gives all of us an opportunity for all sections of the society to really think, how do we bring the power of economic empowerment and social dignity? Right. And how do we amplify it through this blue dot revolution? Right. That is the thought that I have, and it can go in any number of directions that we will. Right. And I think that's the opportunity ahead of us.
No, excellent. So, and you spoke about, power of AI, youth, and entrepreneurial ability, yes. And of course, reimagining, and all of them put together. I think it really helps paint a wider canvas. Correct. Versus what in terms of the art of the possible. Correct. And the art of the possible can be in the social context, economic context. Exactly. So coming to economic context, Sriram, there's a question to you that of course, if blue dots can power discovery through a variety of use cases to unlock India's demographic dividend, what does it mean from an economic sense, if you were to especially look at the markets and how the markets will look at it, and what does it do for them?
Sure, thanks, Gaurav. I think we talked about the concept, we talked about the need, ma'am, we talked about it. Madan eloquently talked about the concept of, four-legged stool and how you can put stuff on top of it. At the end of it, all of this have to drive the growth of the heart of India, which lives in its villages, or where nobody in this room is sitting and living on a day-to-day basis. And what we have realized when you're talking to many such clusters is that keep aside the emotional aspect of social dignity and creating a generation of people who have come out of the shackles of whatever we want to call it, oppression. The basic fundamental is money in the pocket, right? How do you ensure money in the pocket for a person sitting at a very rural village in, say, some corner of India? We talked about discoverability, we talked about inclusivity, we talked about all of those things. But one more thing that we really need to think through, apart from blue and orange, is the kind of self-help groups and people that are sitting in villages with who are typically not represented or underrepresented. What happens is most of the time their circle is very small in terms of the people who know about them, the people who want to discover them. While Blue Dot as a concept, we are talking of hyperlocal value discovery and not talking about fulfillment, we'll come to that later. There is also a merit in terms of looking at, not from the context of Blue Dot growing and a longitudinal life of a Blue Dot, but Blue Dot itself transmitting its signals beyond the district or beyond the hyperlocal area it was supposed to do. Some PWDs may find it difficult to move beyond a certain area, but there are certain other PWDs who are actually mobile as well. Now, how do we really figure that out across a certain geographical boundary? Will really unlock significant value that will perhaps not unlocked if it's a smaller geographical boundary. Number one. Number two, there is something that every single person in a rural household has to offer. And more often than not, it is kind of restricted because of multiple conditions, be it societal, be it geographical, or if I dare use the word caste-specific considerations or whatever, the multiple considerations. Now, people who want to consume those services are all not able to find that out and not able to democratically reach out to them in a digital manner. So what this Blue Dot thing would do is to not just discoverability from the position of a person who's giving, but discoverability from a position of a person who wants to consume. That discovery will significantly alter. And when the fulfillment part of that becomes a zero personal touch, I don't care who gives a Zomato packet at my home, right? And if that person is not able to speak also, but the moment he rings the, or she rings the bell and gives me a food packet, I'm happy, right? So that will significantly change the entire dynamic. That's point number one. Point number two is how do we really exponentially create a scale so that it can become self-sustaining. That creating of scale from self-sustaining, perhaps I would submit that we really need to move away from the fundamental aspect of Blue Dot, which is hyperlocal, to a larger, wider canvas so that the data that is getting captured can also start getting transmitted. So you're creating cohorts of insights coming from certain areas which can get transmitted, and then you can perhaps create a cluster, a food cluster, or perhaps a small cluster of weaving cluster or whatever in terms of what people are buying, or job cluster. So all of those things can spawn out. So what I am seeing as this whole Blue Dot conversation, we'll come to technology later, is not just a movement, but something that can really scale out and change the way the Indian rural economy can be uplifted and integrated to mainstream. That integration to mainstream is what will happen when this Blue Dot moves out of a hyper-local into a hyper-non-local. I don't know what the right word you want to use, into a larger, wider arena.
Yeah. And no, thanks, Sriram, for sharing that, because what you're pointing out is that one can think of Blue Dot not just from the perspective of livelihoods and welfare, but also services, and services that people would like to consume, which are actually around them, but are digitally dark and hence cannot be figured out, right? So, and I know that a team of yours, which is working on calculating some economic impact, actually was telling me a number like, 1,000+ crores that can be added to an economy like Nagpur itself, if one were to take up diverse use cases of Blue Dots. That's also a possibility, right?
In fact, sorry, one other thing to add, and maybe Sriram, that's something that the team can look at as well. See if from a $4 trillion economy, if you want to move towards a 30, 40, whatever $1 trillion economy in the next 25 years or 20 years, per capita has to grow almost like 10x, right? So is it possible for us to work backwards to say, if we have to achieve that because finally what matters is per capita. GDP per capita, right? So if we can work backwards to say, where is that 20 lakhs of additional value going to come from?
Right.
Right? And how does that get unlocked at every household level using this tech? If we can find that correlation and answer, then we can shape the tech to this.
No, no, absolutely.
No, a funny incident, right? I have certain food preferences. Now, I live in an apartment complex which has got 500 houses. I need people who can serve me that food preferences when, when I need, for example. There's a small WhatsApp group that says, Aaj dal chawal ban raha hai, aap chahiye to le lijiye. And then people who start like this suddenly grow, right? Now, this is happening in a place, in an apartment complex where people don't know the neighbor. Think of what it will do in a village or in a town, in a small town. So that is what will unlock a significant value, discovery from both sides, right? And an ability to broadcast that I have certain thing to offer, and where that broadcast is reaching, nobody knows. But if it's captured digitally somewhere, and I have something very cool like a very simple app to consume that broadcast, then value unlock will happen significantly, right? So that is one part. The other part is also now, with whatever I'm reading about, ma'am, a significant amount of neurodiversity is also getting added into the workforce, right? And some of this blue-collar economy and whatever we are trying to say, we can also tag some blue dots as some special skills or whatever, right? If we want somebody to do repetitive tasks again and again and again, people in certain area of the spectrum can do it much, much better. So it's perhaps an intersection between a blue and a purple. You have to invent a color so that you can really figure out what exactly that you can do.
That's what you're talking about. Rainbow has enough colors and to go after that. But I just wanted to now come back to you, Manmeet, which is, I think we all somewhere know that, something like this has power to unlock not just the demographic dividend, but also economy, also social capital, and so on and so forth. Now, if this were to be, let's say, to be done in the top 100 plus districts of the country to begin with, what do you think can be the role that the government can play to facilitate such a move? Because, of course, it's not something that only government should do, but the whole Sarkar, Samaj, Bazaar has to come together to do it. But what do you think can be the government's role in facilitating this?
So we all agree that discoverability or hyper-local discoverability, and then the ability to broadcast that that ability to whoever is willing to take on that talent or provide a service is a done thing. I think the role of the government is to create that like a digital public infrastructure stack, like it's done in the case of Aadhaar. It is shown in the case of UPI, which is, again, we are also exporting that kind of technological intent and learnings to other neighboring countries in the global south. So provide that open infrastructure, but it is standardized. It is reliable, because that's where the government will come in, to tell both ends of the spectrum, the people who need to be discovered and are discovered, and to people who are willing to be providing that service, that this is a reliable and a standardized method, and you can trust it. I think that's where the most important role of the government would come in. And I think when we worked with Ek Step and did that pilot project in Patna and in Haridwar, we did realize that there were a lot of people who were willing to provide service or provide donations or CSRs. But they kept coming back to our foot soldiers to tell them, हमें पता ही नहीं है किसको देना है. So there is a lot of people who are waiting to be discovered, and there are a larger number of people who are waiting to give, provide. It could be cash, it could be services, it could be aids, it could be any kind of thing. But that matchmaking, if it is done on a government open, reliable public infrastructure, that would lead to a game change. And I also want to add a question relating to one of the comments said that the moment we stop looking at discoverability or finding that bichara PWD or rural poor living in 70% of our poor living in our villages, we need to stop looking at all of this from welfare economics, move it more into inclusion economics. Trust me, 200 million population is what WHO thinks, that also conservatively, are the PWD population in my country. The census talked about 26.8 something. We far know that they are much more, because the number of neurodivergent cases, people accept them to be having that so-called disability is also invisible. They've kept it hidden. Now, this is a large economy. So the commercial sense of providing services for them is what we should project, instead of being a welfare-based medical model of inclusion. That's what I want to stress on.
I have one submission on the role of government.
Yes, please.
Having spent a lot of years advising governments, is that somewhere when we are trying to scale out these kind of initiatives, there are pockets of excellence. Ghaziabad is a pocket of excellence, Dharwad is a pocket of excellence. Taking the pocket of excellence into a scalable model, governing and orchestrating, that is perhaps a role that only government can do. How much ever private sector wants to do, governing, orchestrating, then at later point in time, certain legal aspects will come in, policy interventions have to come into picture. All of that, there has to be some kind of a government intervention to really scale this out. And that, while the IT part of a digital public infrastructure is something that can be created by a technocrat easily, this governance of the DPI and scaling out from pockets of excellence into a wider scale out is a critical role that, in my submission, government should also play.
I agree. I completely agree.
Right. In fact, our time is not up. This is what I've been told. It's not up. I've been told we can continue for a little bit more. Sorry, we see the screen which says time up, which you may not be seeing, but I've just told we can continue for a bit. Manmeet, very well articulated in terms of, this government can play the role of enabling digital public infrastructure rails for everyone to play upon. And I think, Sriram, you were adding to that, not just the technology aspect, but also maybe envisioning aspect, seeing how the ecosystem can play together. In that context, what are the guidelines, rules of the game, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's very, very important. So actually wanted to take that question to both of you, Madan and Sriram, as stakeholders of both Samaj and Bazaar, in a way. If that were to happen, how do you envision that something like this getting implemented in 100 plus districts of India, what do you think will change as a result of something like this?
There's a slightly different view that I'll take to what Sriram is saying.
And being his roommate, of course,
tension nahi. No, the point is, I think it is a jugalbandi. It is, as you said, the orchestration, and in a jugalbandi or an orchestra, everybody has to come together. Where I'm also coming from is, and that's the, we've all a part of this, at the India AI Summit, we've kind of brought together a collaborative called Jan AI, saying what India needs is not just more of Gen AI, but Jan AI, that how do you take AI to the masses? Our learning has been that unless and until the people at the ground feel comfortable, feel that this is useful to me, and feel that I can trust this, and if something goes wrong, somebody is there for me. If that is not happen, then the whole Antyodaya Sarvodaya concept will not happen, right? Even in UPI, I've actually stood outside thousands of rural stores through the teams and understood why are people not using it. And the biggest challenge, they said, if I have paid 30 rupees to somebody, if it doesn't go, he says it's not come, I said it's gone, who's resolving this for me? And I don't want to, there's no call center.
Resolve that friction, have a speaker box, which was an important.
So I think especially as AI takes shape into the grassroots, how do we create structures together that brings that use case specifically tailored for them, brings the comfort and the trust to say that, listen, I can use this without fear. And that has to be very focusedly done. Else, we can all sit here and say, I have the best of solutions, I do that, this, but finally at the ground, if it's not going and getting used and the economic benefits are not accruing,
right,
then there's no use, right? So I think especially a moment like this requires more in-depth conversation of the Samaj Bazaar Sarkar to come together to figure out how do we design the systems. In fact, I met somebody who runs the British government apparently has a behavioral nudge team that weighs in on every policy decision that the British government takes and say what are the behavioral nudges that are required to make this happen, how do we design that into the system itself?
Excellent.
Right? Especially in the world of AI and new tech coming in, we need more than ever these behavioral nudges to play. I mean, Swachh Bharat mission was such a wonderful behavioral nudge.
Yeah.
Right? So what can we learn from lessons like that? Or the pulse polio eradication program that was done by Rotary was a large movement. Incredible India, absolutely. So I think it requires us to think from that angle for a faster adoption.
No, absolutely, well said. In fact, just wanted to point out that also, when we talk about any large-scale transformation, transformation is about change in the lives of people.
Yeah.
Change is the hardest thing.
Yeah.
And what we are expected to change is our behavior.
Correct.
Right? So hence figuring out how we reduce frictions
Yeah.
and create value, both in economic and social terms for people, becomes very, very important as that happens. Yeah, Sriram.
So where do I imagine this getting to, right? So let's go back, step back a bit, right? When Facebook came in, I didn't have a Facebook ID. Then somebody said you should get into Facebook and create an ID. I said, why should I do it? I said, you'll know all your classmates. You'll be able to talk to them. So it kind of fulfilled an unfulfilled need of getting to know long lost friends and telling that maybe pahunch gaya, tum bhi pahunch gaya life mein. So let's talk about it. Then that was not sufficient. Then Insta came, right? Then it became more and more talking about this is what is happening in my life today, right? Then Snapchat came. It's not happening in life today, it's happening now. So there is a need to broadcast and get that self-validation, ma'am. Yeah, absolutely. That's the right word, right? And then others also felt the need. Then it kind of reached a critical mass and it grew. Now, what I would see in this is, in a future world, assuming, all the frictions are eliminated, through government orchestration or a Jugalbandi orchestration, whatever it is. This has the potential to not only discover and fulfill, but also start integrating value exchange. Right? Currently we are looking at discoverability and fulfillment of skills versus jobs. Now tomorrow, you add a training center into it. Then there is exchange of money. You add a scholarship providing CSR initiative. Then there is exchange consideration of who to do, what to do. Then slowly you start building the profile of Blue Dot. Blue Dot will get multiple flavors, right? Now this is how do you make it trustable? Then the fact that I have worked, I'm a ITA pass out, I'm a welder, I have a physical disability of XYZ, and I've worked with this MSME for 2 years. Like somebody said, my interest is to move out of the village into a town, into a metro, and then earn, say, 50,000 a month. The fact that this person has had the skill, verifiability of that, the longitudinal trust around that whole thing, can we start embedding into Blue Dot? So when these things slowly start happening, this whole Blue Dot has the ability to become a value exchange, a discovery, perhaps a Monster or a LinkedIn of the future. It could also become an Amazon of the future. It could become an urban company of the future. All of this is possible, but the key question that remains is, how do we show the first few examples that are really successful? And as a country, sorry for saying this, my personal opinion, not Deloitte's, we are very poor in tom-tomming our successes. Saying that, we have done this really well, this works, so please others emulate us. So how do we take the best examples of a Ghaziabad or a Dharwad and really get it into a mainstream conversation, right? And if there are 10,000 PWD in Ghaziabad who have got employed with this, how do we run a campaign so that, 5 other districts would want to pick that up? So all of those things have to come together to really imagine the future that we have. Friction is not just in technology. Friction is across adaptability and adoptability both.
Yeah. No, that's very well articulated, Sriram, because I think you're just not just talking about the fact that technology is one aspect, but behavior. Yeah. And in that context, what are the different use cases of this, right? Which is, because as an individual, I have different aspirations, different needs. How does the Blue Dot continue with me in that journey, evolve in that journey, become something which I can use for many, many different types of exchanges that I need to do in the context of my needs and aspirations. That's a very, very powerful way of looking at it. Now coming to diverse use cases, final question, just like 30 second kind of a response. if you were to really see a use case expand and become big in the country in this year, 2026, what would be your choice? Please can give your reaction.
I'll go first because again, I will speak again from the point of view of persons with disabilities. My use case would be to unlock that potential that they have waiting there to be discovered, that they are an individual who have the power to economically give to the GDP of the country. They are an commercial base, a marketplace which has not been discovered. We need people to provide both goods and services to them, and that their participation becomes a matter of default, not a matter of programs like Purple Dots to discover them. It should become default. And all this in the entire envelope of inclusivity at the basic design from birth till the end of the cycle. Thank you.
Well, beautiful. Sriram, Madan.
I think I touched upon it. I didn't delve into it. It's all about hyperlocal value discovery. The killer use case for me would be local self-governance, right? And there you don't need significant governance because there are enough panchayats and all of those who are governing. So how can you really get this local economy blooming through the SHG? Why I'm using the word SHG again is one, there are certain people who are skilled, who get formal education. They go to ITA, they go to 10th, 12th, etc. There is a bunch of people who are denied even that. In some villages where people cannot go for education, how do we bring them into mainstream? SHG is the key place. Thank you.
One word, MSMEs. How do we unlock the power of MSMEs? I think this is ripe for disruption.
Excellent. I'll pray to God tonight that all your use cases come true during this year. Thank you so much to all of you for being present here. And once again, apologies for the delayed start, but I hope you enjoyed the conversation and had some good takeaways. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Look forward to working. Thank you.